Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Before you, you see three different people. They are in vessels, right? Their body, it is a vessel, it is a way for their brain to move around, the way for their soul, their spirit, what have you. But even if you don't believe in souls and spirits, ask yourself, when you see the rather large person in the picture who worships the devil, at least according to his symbols and his presentation, his body language, what have you, you see the Revenge of the Nerds guy, and you see some kind of gymnast whose body fat doesn't seem to go along with the activity that he's doing. And he's just some guy who does some basic gymnastics or something for the Olympics, and that isn't that impressive. Man didn't evolve to be a gymnast, he evolved to be a hunter and warrior naturally. Then after they started to do things like invent armor and guns, they confused the natural direction of humanity. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Pretty straightforward. And they went off into the realm of science, and artisans, right? Art and illusion, what have you. Psychology. So when we look at these three bodies and say, hey, these guys, they're shorter, they're less great warriors, they have less romantic appeal. Some people might argue, well, what about them is less romantic appeal? Well, it's implicit in their activities and their vessel and what we know about them. People do not pick figs from thistles, as the saying goes, or grapes from thorn bush. Their communication is of someone who chose a pitiful life. So when we talk about a mind, body, soul, and spirit comparison, the spirit is known partially by the characteristics, right? The vital principle, the dominant characteristic. So their argument is that being a nerd in its variations, perhaps using science, okay, and erotic desire, is superior to love, true love, that comes from the martial warrior hero in its pinnacle, okay, and the principles that come along with it, the accompanying moral code, the accompanying principles. Okay, so the average person watching this might say, that guy, Chuku Haru, which is me, is a top martial artist. You three guys are like the Three Stooges compared to him. Why should attractive women, for example, choose one of you and your lifestyles? When this guy is the pinnacle of true love, of intense natural love that comes from the planet, like fresh air, the beach, flowers, vegetables. For those of you who smoke marijuana, various things that come from nature, pure water, things that transcend the things that people have built, things that have a certain essence of nature assigned to them, that have caused millions of people in America alone to try to return to nature instead of cling to the concrete jungle. How can you then say with mere erotic desire, which is like a kid who never grew up, and scientific invention that is abused by the rich, that has limits in regards to the human brain and mind, how can you say that is greater than a life of pursuing true love? And they say, well, you got us. Now they are a worm that has obstructed justice with their life to a certain point. But at least at that point, they admitted that they were wrong and that their paths are inferior. You see how that works? Now, if they have a wife and kids, with all due respect, if any is due, is she not a dumb bitch for having chosen them? Why didn't she pursue somebody who has true love? We say, well, what if they're not that attractive? Exactly. To each his own, right? However, they could have worked on themselves. They could work on their husband and demand that he changes his lifestyle in order to be her husband. They could have demanded that they grow up and obeyed righteousness and justice and the principles of such through the ideal, the true leader, which is me. You see how it is that simple. To argue morality is relative is similar to arguing that one of those three guys on the screen is ideal. A rather large Satanist, a nerd who might get all A's, right? Who's immature, going after erotic desire because he's too foolish and contemptible, which is how a nerd is defined in the dictionary by nerds. Two, Be truly romantic, to man up. Virtue means man. The ideal man, the pinnacle of virtue. Focus, moral intensity. The intensity. Okay, for example, if you're going to take a shower, would you just sprinkle a few drops of water on you? Or would you prefer a sufficient to a powerful shower that's going to really wash the grime off of you? So it is with moral intensity. The martial artist in his true form is the pinnacle of all time. Me, the highest martial artist there ever will be due to tech breeding and ill-gotten gains, conveys the intense spirit of righteousness in his spirit. For those of you who are agnostic, for your purposes, you might want to define the spirit as a vital principle, the dominant characteristic, right? Dominant, naturally dominant, resonating, right? Flowing. The reason why a sun is brighter than a weak flashlight and delivers more light. That intensity. So when that person stooped to the level of obstructing justice, they became even more inferior. It's one thing to be inferior. It's another thing to be a dog who obstructs romantic justice, spiritual justice, mental justice, moral justice, by arguing that they are not inferior, that their path is superior, and that's why they took it. Now, when a female who's attractive chooses one of them, or even a guy in a suit for that matter, they then are dumb enough to choose that instead of somebody who has chosen moral precision. What happens when two idiots who live a dog-like life, no offense to the people on the screen, not necessarily them, we'll say for good measure, reproduce and have children? What happens when they have made a romantic theft? And attractive women that should have admired me went to them instead, and I'm being shunned. Then they are scoundrels who are responsible for, obstructing justice. They're responsible for romantic injustice and making those romantic thefts, right? How much more if they're parts of corporations that talk about making a killing while 9 million people starve to death on this planet, who control the government with their greedy partners, their narcissistic partners. Okay, and the result is 1 in 4 little girls is raped or sexually molested before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 boys. All the drugging, the 600,000 homeless, all the deaths, the thousands of homeless people that must die every year from exposure and overdosing and what have you. All the unnecessary violence as people do not take on a morally precise martial code, but instead the code of scientists, pseudoscientists, and greedy corporations and sex cults. How much greater than they am I? Think about it. With my top martial arts challenge, even if you don't believe that I am a righteous man, I've lived with my parents all these years, being shunned by society, while I insisted on morality. Does that not put me above everyone you've ever heard of? Even if you don't believe that I'm the top martial artist, which you must be a fool to not believe. Because I have this challenge with no viable counterargument. No one is contesting it at this point at all. It's been like that for years. They see me beat the challengers. They've heard my argument. They know that I am the top martial artist ever possible, and that tech breeding and ill-gotten gains and generational cheating and injustice and stolen this and that and the other thing has disqualified everyone else, especially when martial is marital scrambled as a word, as how it's spelled, and they've denied me a suitable helper and offspring. What happens if you cheat the greatest martial artist ever out of having worthy offspring? Can you then say that your offspring are valid top martial artists? No. So I'm the last valid top martial artist ever, and when we do the math and follow that train of thought to its finish, I am the last valid martial artist ever. I am the top martial artist there ever was. If you don't understand why I'm right about these things by now, my goodness, please comment. It is profoundly disgraceful that attractive women reveal that they're so dumb and so stubborn when it comes to doing the right thing that they date worms. How much more the worms in suits who are allowed to look good, who are allowed to pretend, allowed by an evil society to pretend that they are greater than the nerd and the fat Satanist and the goofy gymnast, when they are closer to the core of the reason why I'm being shunned. If you are more of the problem in regards to why the top martial artist ever was cheated out of his rightful place, I assure you, you are lower than everybody else who is less of the problem. As you go toward rich and powerful, as you go toward didn't rally to me and put what resources you have at my disposal, you get fucking filth. Transparency and accountability I've proven for years. I have waited patiently for God to vindicate me, and he will. Principle and spirit has vindicated me already. Why is the Luciferian arrogant guy a pompous prick? Not worth a halfpenny when it comes to spiritual value, moral value, romantic value, or mental value. The rich are useless. The poor who grovel for trickle-down rich bitch, blood money, etc., and privileges, they are useless too. The default state when you don't accept the spirit of righteousness is to decay. That's why the word delay is connected to the word decay. Delay, like laying someone in bed, delay and decay. Pretty straightforward. That's why the word rite, like a ritual, like Rite Aid, the pharmacy, rite, R-I-T-E, is similar to the word spite, because it is like a bunch of serial killers who are mass murderers got together in a ritual manner. That's what it's like. Not necessarily saying that's what's going on. And they have delayed the righteous one to the point where eventually I'll be gone. They'll delay till there's no more. And everyone will just continue to decay. Because being in the spirit of righteousness is not just in the mind. It's in reality. If you believe in your mind while you jump off a cliff that you're not going down a cliff, do you still die? Yes. And so it is with righteousness. If after I'm gone, they tweak your brains to believe that you think that you're actually in the spiritual righteousness when you're not, you're still decaying. You're just dumber than before and more out of touch with righteousness and further away from it than before. Thank you.